Okay, I'm going to take a peek at this one real quick. Looked at a few others. Definitely need to go through some mite treatments. These girls here were not happy when I did the removal. They were actually quite testy. These bees came from Tohono Chul Park, and they were living in an irrigation box there. So let's see how they're doing. Ooh. As you can tell, the real jiddiness. Look at how much they run. It's just a trait of the Africanized hybrid. Yeah, wow. But here's another trait of the Africanized hybrid. So, oh my goodness. I'll be right there, I'm coming. There you go. They sure do like to raise the brood. Nice frame. Let me see if I can move y'all over to look at. So right now I'm just kind of looking for these empty frames so that I can slide them in between like that. It's kind of a crappy frame. They'll fix that. That's empty, empty, and an empty. This crappy frame actually has a little weight to it already. They've got either some nectar or syrup in it, and then I'm going to put in there this is that nice brood frame. And this frame has brood and egg, sealed brood and eggs on it. So I'm going to put an empty between the nectar frame, and then I'm going to put the sealed brood, and then this is just all nectar. Okay, what a weirdo. This queen has an interrupted brood area, a solid frame of brood in between, or a solid frame of honey in between her two frames of brood. And it could be because this is the second box, so you know, it's not like she is completely stuck. Look at that. That's the outside frame. Okay, so I'm going to take this outside frame and I'm going to move it, putting the solid frame of honey on the complete outside. And then I'm going to flip this one around that has all this space here to draw, and I'm going to put that towards the brood chamber. And then I'm going to fill that spot with the empties by staggering them, because as I said, we are coming into a nectar flow. I've got yellow balls blooming, I've got the mesquites are starting, and I mentioned all the other pollen sources from earlier. Okay, so that's my medium super. Getting down into the deep area now. They're starting, as you can tell, starting to kind of get a little cranky. Starting to hit my veil. Make sure it's closed. So once again, I'm going to start from the outside where there's no bees. Empty frame. Really ugly empty frame. Wow, they're just running around in the box. Okay, we got empties. Empty. So like we have foundation not drawn, but on this side, it's actually quite lovely. It's got pollen or bee bread being filled into the cells. So very nice. I'm gonna actually move that one a little further to the outside, but keeping it in the area where there is some, you know, close to the brood. You want the pollen close to the brood. Yeah, baby. What do we got on that side? All eggs. That side, sealed brood. Haven't spotted her yet, but they are runnies. They are all over the place in there, which, let me see what I can do here. Try to help them out a bit. Bringing in some beautiful yellow pollen. So I do have, in this area, I do have a few Texas Rangers, or Texas Sage, I think it's called, blooming, and it could be that, or it could be the creosote. But we do have some absolutely beautiful pollen, if you can see all the pollen coming in. They stopped hitting my dry protein source, which tells me that there's natural stuff that they'd much rather have out there. Oh, there's some really light colored. I think the really light colored yellow is the Texas Ranger, and that the darker yellow, wow. You should see, you just gotta see all of the beautiful, look at all the pollen coming in on these girls. Looking quite lovely, I really. And if you notice, they're not that bad. This hive is actually very workable. And here's the thing though. Oops, don't want to drop that. Here's the thing though. I'm out in the middle of nowhere. I'm not in a residential neighborhood. Africanized bees are unpredictably defensive. And because of that unpredictable part of that, I mean, that doesn't mean they're going to be defensive every time you're in them. And it doesn't mean that when you walk by one day, oh, they're making a mess on this one. I'm going to have to clean that. That one actually needs to get a little bit of wax put on it. Looks like a frame of foundation made it into the boxes without being pre-waxed. And she's quite the pretty girl. I found her. Hold on. I'll give you guys a view here in just a second. This is one thing that I see a lot with the Africanized bees, is that the queen will actually run out the side, and she is a very nice looking queen. And I don't know if you noticed, but there are waxworm casings down in the bottom of the hive. So I am pulling out all the frames so that I can clean that up for them. They do need a little bit of help, even though they have the tendency to do their own cleaning. Some bees, you know, they just need a little helping hand. Again, putting them back, I'm putting a couple empties in between all that beautiful sealed brood. Africanized bees have a higher tendency to swarm more frequently than European bees do, but I have kept the same Africanized hybrid queen in the same hive for, let's see, about 3 years. So it can be done, but you have got to consistently manage that hive and make sure that they have plenty of room at all times. Like a hive like this can just burst. Imagine every time all that sealed brood emerges, the numbers explode. So what I do is I take from them. I use them as donor hives. I will help save some of the bees that come in for rehabilitation by pulling a frame of honey or by pulling a frame of brood from my Africanized hybrids in order to help the Africanized hybrids that I bring in from removals, especially ones that are like swarms that don't have any established comb for me to reintroduce to them back out in my apiary. So I do use these. I call them my donor hives. So just like a veterinary hospital might have a greyhound or a cat available at all times as blood donors for other animals that may come in, that's kind of the way that I use some of the hives that I have that I keep Africanized, especially when they're manageable, they're workable in this condition. And because Africanized bees are not conservative, they go through their stores like crazy girls. I mean, they'll use it all up. They will not shut down as long as they have it coming in. And so what I tend to do is, since you feed them, they can survive. So literally you can keep an Africanized hive alive. If you are a beekeeper and you're managing your hives, you can keep them alive in northern climates. It's because when they swarm and they go out and try to survive on their own, that they don't make it, because the temperatures and the just the straight fact that they go through all of their reserves without shutting down for the winter is why they don't survive on their own as a feral hive in colder temperatures. Now this is something, as you can tell, I've got all kinds of raised comb in there, and you can't manage a hive if you can't see behind the comb. So just shake it off, and I'm going to clean this up. I don't have anything really with me to fix this right offhand, so I'm just going to put it back in, and I'm only taking off the spot that is bad, kind of scratching it up a bit. And I'm going to put that to the outer edge. And that goes in my solar wax melter. So there's no honey in it. Actually, whoop, there was a little nectar in there. So, okay, and that doesn't make them happy. They do not like that at all. So imagine if, a lot of European hives don't like that when you break their comb and the scent gets out. But these girls kind of have a tendency to really not like it. And so can you imagine if I was in a residential neighborhood and here I am fully suited up and these bees hold a grudge against whoever's outside, and it could be your neighbors just overside the fence having a pool party. That just doesn't work. So you don't want to keep these Africanized hybrids in a backyard situation as a backyard beekeeper. But if you're in a rural area or you have an ability to have an outyard in a rural area, this is perfect. There's nothing wrong with some of these Africanized bees. I hate to say it. I hate to say it. So, yeah, they do well, but you have to keep them, well managed, keep them small, and stay on top of them. They do produce honey. They do their thing. That's not to say that I enjoy working them. I'd much rather be in my bathing suit working a Cordovan hive. All right, if I can, I think I might work one more Africanized hive today. This hive came out from under a shed floor in Tucson maybe a couple months ago. I'm not quite sure how long ago now. But the hive was beautiful. During a time when a lot of the other removals I was doing had nothing, this hive was flourishing. It had all kinds of gorgeous honeycomb, and so I chose not to requeen her right away. So let's take a peek and see how she's doing. All right, let's see. Let me see if I can get you guys higher. Hold on. This is a 3 boxes high, 2 deeps and 1 medium. Okay. They've finished their syrup bucket. I don't even know. Like I said, my smoker's looking a little peaked. Oh my goodness. This sounds exciting. I love it when the 3rd box is just boiling over. That dang, I gotta get some more smoker fuel, or at least get the other stuff dry. Ooh, little cranky. I'm just using weeds, and it's been raining for 3 days, so the fuel is not working very good. All right. I'm gonna drop it down to the 1st box because I am going through these basically to rearrange that. Like I said, they're Africanized bees, and with them being Africanized bees, you have to make sure that the queen has room at all. I mean, it's even more important than with a European queen. Like I said, I find that their swarming tendencies are much more frequent than Europeans, and so if you think you can't keep a European in a hive, wait till you meet an Africanized girl. Okay. Oh man, this smoker sucks. Grabbed a crappy one too. This stupid smoker. Okay. They're not being too bad. Just being a little fussy, checking me out. Bottom box. Nothing really on that side. They're not drawing it out very well. The other thing that Africanized bees tend to do a lot of is that they make a heck of a lot of drone brood. And we're gonna see. The other hive really didn't have that much drone brood yet. Take a peek. Happy girls. Like I said, I'm in the bottom box. These ones have some really bright orange pollen coming in. It's almost like it might have found some, well, it's not as red as the prickle poppy flower. And again, most important thing, woohoo! These Here we go. This is the example of what they are capable of. They really don't like it when you get into their brood chamber. They're really kind of fussy about that. Really nice frame of bee bread or pollen. Whew, lots of it. Beautiful. And again, like I said, what I'm going to do, this is full of nectar, so there's no room for a queen to lay on that frame, putting that towards the outside. And then here we go, frame of brood. Sometimes I wonder what these bees really are thinking. Africanized bees, they don't follow any rule books. Silly bees. So what I'm trying to do then is put the brood together with some empties in between, as I said before. Frame of nectar, that's going to go on the outside. Whoa, mamas. Easy, girls. All right. Frame of nectar on the outside. Moving much slower now. They were not tolerating the speed that I was going at. They also really don't like it when I'm talking. But I'm gonna talk for the video. Try to get them some more smoke. Sometimes Africanized bees don't even respond to the smoke. It's just their nature, again. One day they will, and another day they won't. I'm almost done with box number 1. Putting the frame of brood back in. The center. Another frame of brood that has an empty side facing the brood chamber. And an empty frame closer to the brood chamber. Next box. I'm going to try to smoke them down a little bit. Like I said, they're not really caring. It does make them run a little bit more. Medium feels full. I'm going to give them a little bit more smoke. Kind of run them out of the medium box a little bit so I can take a look at the frames. By the way, this is kind of the technique that they use in Brazil. Kind of run them out using really large smokers. Frame of honey. Another frame of honey. Another frame of honey. Again, moving kind of slow. Sorry you guys are so far away. I'll try to hold them up a little bit better. So you can see we got a patch of sealed brood. You might be wondering why it's a deep and then a medium and then a deep. What happened was I had a deep from another hive that was a partial honey, and I needed a place to put it, so I just threw it on top of this hive. Frame of brood. Frame of brood. Has some drone on it. Drone cells. Mostly, look at that. This is what I'm talking about, Africanized. Look at all the drone comb. Drone. There's some worker bees in there, but mostly drone. I'm thinking she's having a bad day. They weren't like this before, but they're also getting a little larger. So what I'm going to have to do is, when I need some frames again, this is going to be my donor hive. Oops. Oh, that'll make them mad. What'd I say? Made them a little angry. I dropped their feed cover. Easy girls, I know. Prime of example. See this? Don't want this in a residential neighborhood. Make sure you keep European queens in your backyards. Third box. What's funny, look at this, even with as strong of a hive as this is, 3 boxes full of bees, no room left. I've got to check the top one. I just saw a waxworm. This happens. Hopefully the bees will chase her down. I mean, look at this attitude. You would think that the bees would kill that waxworm. Frame of nectar or syrup. Right before I left, I was gone for a couple weeks, and I haven't checked this hive for about 3 weeks. And when I left 3 weeks ago, they have a 1 gallon internal feeder and had that syrup bucket on top. So they had plenty of stuff to put into stores. So just all honey. This is what's left of their protein patty. Little brood, actually drone brood. More drone brood. All of this. It's all drone brood. I really don't want these girls breeding. I'm gonna take that drone brood out, feed it to my chickens. Literally, they're starting, look at that, they're starting to go after my gloves. And yes, I'm just wearing nitrils. And no, I have not been stung yet. So there's still not a 10 on my heatometer. My heatometer scale, the number 10s, they don't care about sacrificing themselves through nitrile gloves. And there's a brood in the 3rd chamber. There's literally not a true empty frame in this hive. I'm going to have to come back in here and pull 5 frames out and give them 5 empty frames. I'll probably do that tomorrow. There's no swarm cells or anything like that, so I'm really not worried about them yet. But they really need some room, and they're a little bit too big. This is my feeder spacer. It's just a cut down board, box I mean. You can see the handle right there. It's about 2 inches high by about 1 inch. And then my top cover is just a piece of plywood with a hole in it, a couple handbars. Put that on top. Now I gotta weigh it down. I'm just gonna go ahead and put the syrup bucket back on it for now. I'm gonna need to switch the syrup bucket out. But right there is a prime example. I just worked 2 Africanized hives. One of them, nice bees, this time. And this hive, which was nice last time, is acting like this. This is this is just their nature. This is how they act. Unpredictable. If I can't stress that enough, that's something that I want you to really learn and understand about Africanized hybrids. They are unpredictable, and that's what gets them put in the news. People will begin to think that that hive that's been living underneath their shed or up in the eaves of their house, or in their irrigation box system, or in their compost bin, or all of the 100 of places that Africanized bees do like to live in a residential neighborhood. People will start to think that these bees, because they're not doing anything, they're not coming after them, well, then they can't be mean. They must not be Africanized. But then all of a sudden, something one day sets them off. A landscaper comes over and starts a weed whacker, or you start a project with your cordless drill, or you start a lawnmower, or your kids are playing ball, or your dog accidentally bumps the hive. Anything like that. And then this type of activity happens. And this, like I said, this is not my number 10. But this is something that you need to really, 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 really understand about Africanized bees. There's that light colored, almost whitish color pollen. Oops, get back there. Let me see if another girl's got more on it. They're being really, really quick on the flowers. But yeah, that's where it's coming from. I had a feeling I recognized that pollen.